Okay, this is Jason F. Smith. I am here with Suzanne Wagner and Jennie Stanchfield. We're doing a little interview on the Shades of Intimacy workshop, which is coming up February 16th, 17th, and 18th in Heber City, Utah. So ladies, the first question I have for you is, what is happening right now in society that makes workshops on intimacy, like the Shades of Intimacy workshop, so critical for where we need to head in the world? So I'm going to start with you, Suzanne.
Okay. Well, I think right now the world is lacking a lot of love. I think it's lacking a lot of support. I think it's lacking a lot of connection. I think one of the roots for addiction issues is unresolved issues from childhood related to sexuality and intimacy that was never properly addressed or formed when we were children. So I think we go into marriages and relationships and we're looking for what we didn't get in relationship. And I think a lot of people don't have tools. I think that they want something, and I think what they want is very, very real, but they actually don't have the tools to get there. So our whole society is now looking at things like social media to have that intimacy, but is that actually real intimacy? And it's not. And when you get into a real intimacy, you're completely clueless on how to be authentic and vulnerable and sincere, because so many of the things right now are so shallow. So I think Shades of Intimacy, we're going to give you exercises to really help you go deep and express your authentic self and find the intimacy that you are lacking in the social media world. And there is so much more to intimacy in life than just what you can get on a flat screen.
I don't want to deviate from the question, but you brought something up, and it's something that I see as a man. More and more and more and more men are addicted to porn. It's become a real problem. It's ridiculously easy to get to.
Mm-hmm.
And so with that curveball thrown in, Jennie, I'd like to turn it over to you and see if you have anything to say, because it's a very relevant topic.
Mm-hmm.
And most men are actually ashamed of this. But as the social media addiction is growing, just along with that, Suzanne, we are talking about a porn addiction, which is, and it's affecting our children. They're getting their intimacy from a computer screen, and it's not going to be long, really. What, 5-10 years, these VR goggles, people are just going to be doing porn and video games in their house. They're never leaving. The kids are not getting off the couch.
So to me, what's going on right now is there's obviously extreme polarity going on. I'll get to the porn in a second. There's extreme polarity going on, but it's a distorted polarity. And so right now everyone is, you're either on one side or you're on the other side. So it's this really distorted polarity in which you cannot form any sort of intimacy. You're either like this group or you're like this group. And when you're talking about sexual intimacy or polarity, you can't necessarily be like someone. You actually have to be the opposite of someone. And so in order to do that, you have to understand that polarity is actually a very beautiful organic thing, but when it becomes this distorted polarity where you're fighting against one another and you're just finding safety in the commonality. So you can imagine if a man and a woman become, if there is no polarity between the two of them and they're both exhibiting the masculine or both exhibiting the feminine, there's no polarity there. There's safety, there may be safety there, but there's no polarity there. I draw the same parallel to porn. So porn, it is this extreme polarity, but it's also this huge way of checking out. So because in my mind, life has become in some ways so chaotic, a really easy way to go check out. It's not about the connection. It's not about intimacy. It's about checking out and going and just viewing these images and making no connection to them. Because you don't have to. And that's easy. And it's much easier than it's living in that extremely polarized world and checking out in it versus actually putting the work in and the effort to create meaningful polarity and something that can foster intimacy and caring and tenderness versus the polarity that we are unfortunately becoming accustomed to, which is fostering kind of this tension and this fight in everyone.
Do you have anything to say about porn?
Oh, yeah.
I thought you would. Seriously, yeah,
Yeah.
this is a real thing.
Well, I mean, I think it's something that we have to really look at as to what is it that you really want in a relationship. And I think that when you start in a relationship, all of us want sort of what we want. We want what we want, and we want a fairly quick fix, and we want to have an orgasm the way we have an orgasm, and we're happy with that, and we feel fulfilled, and we don't have to go deep. We don't have to go deep in ourselves. We don't have to confront our own fears. We don't have to confront our own feelings of insecurity or inadequacy. And when you are using porn, you get a cheap ride. You basically get a cheap ride. And you get just your little bubble. You get your little bubble, and you get to be looking at whatever is the most attractive to you, and you don't ever have to stretch. And that's what happens to people. They get locked in a certain style of sexuality or intimacy or a particular vision or a particular fetish or thing, because that is fulfilling an unresolved, wounded part of themselves. But when you get into intimacy with another person, it's much more complicated, because they have feelings and they have emotions, and nobody, whether you're male or female, wants to be an object. And if you've trained yourself to just respond to an object, you will treat another person as an object. And that is what is happening in our society right now, politically, socially, in every way. That, it's like, I have these feelings, and my emotions and what I feel is more important than what you feel, and what you feel doesn't matter at all. And that creates a type of society that doesn't have any depth and doesn't have caring. And it's almost as if the compassion has gone completely out the window. So as much as I think, porn has done an incredibly good job at reflecting to humanity the shadow flavors that they're afraid to go into, which is the attraction to it. So, porn figured out a long time ago that I'm going to show you the things that you're the most scared of, and the darkest images and scariest images, and the places that you have the greatest fear to go, because that is enticing. That's why people go into shadow work and why you want to do them. But again, it has no responsibility. There's no responsibility with it. And in our society, that's what we see. We have all these people out there just talking on social media about what they think and what they believe, and they don't care about the consequences, because they haven't learned anything about compassion. And it's when you have to interact with another person that you learn compassion. You learn to restrain yourself. You learn to listen. We have a whole society now that nobody listens to anybody as to what's really going on under the surface. But even more important, they don't even know what's going on below the surface, because they are being fed so much on a shallow level, on a social media and movie level, that I just can live on this shallow level, and I don't have to confront anything that's super scary. So what we're trying to do within the Shades of Intimacy is, I feel like there's this hunger in society. There's a hunger from people in relationship that they know they're being fed cardboard. They know they are. I mean, it might be cool, sexy cardboard, but it's still cardboard, and they know they're missing something. And people come to the Shades of Intimacy because they want to find what they're missing. A flavor, a depth, a sensation. It's kind of the difference between eating McDonald's or eating, a beautiful French cuisine. One takes time. Relationships take time. Relationships take intimacy. Relations take preparation. You can't just get your little hamburger and be filled up. I mean, it's like it's never going to be enough. It will never really nurture your soul or your spirit.
Yeah, right now I think a lot of it is about taking the shortcut. And porn is a way to take a shortcut. And social media and calling that intimacy is a way to take a shortcut. And like Suzanne mentioned, there's no richness to that. There's no meat to that. And it also creates in our bodies this sense of excitement that's not true excitement. It's almost like a hysteria, really. And we're starting to relate that hysteria with what we think is connection, and it's not. And so with Shades of Intimacy, we're bringing people in and trying to rewire that in a way, slow it down, so that you can actually start to feel what's underneath and what true intimacy connection really is.
So do you have any words to women whose men are addicted to porn, and what that feels like to be a woman with a man who's not just looking at porn, but is addicted to it?
For women whose men are addicted to porn, we've worked with women whose men are addicted to porn, and it's heartrending for them. And yes, they've learned certain coping mechanisms. Almost every woman who we've come in contact with has learned certain coping mechanisms to make it somehow all right in her world at times. Sometimes, you get up to a point where it's not all right, but underneath it's complete sadness. She wants that man to be present with him. She knows that he is checking out. She knows that there is a part of him that is using this sexual excitation to really check out of the relationship, to check out of life, to not be present with himself, with her, with their kids. And it's devastating for her. She wants a man to be present with her. And again, that's where that slowing down and that reconnection, that rewiring becomes critical.
Well, and I also think it's about safety. I think that in life, as women, safety is super important. And when your man is not fully present with you, you do not feel safe. And if you as a woman don't feel safe, it's very hard to open sexually when a man is checking out and he's looking at porn, because as a woman, you start to compare yourself to these women that have been photoshopped and they have the perfect bodies. And as we all age, our bodies shift and change, and it brings up all those fears and insecurities about not being good enough. But more important for women, it's about losing something, losing the relationship, losing the connection, losing the safety, losing the security. And, I understand that men are just trying to have an energetic release, and they're trying to kind of de-stress through sex, which is incredibly common. We all do it, even women do it. Mm-hmm. But it's that place where men are not staying present in where they are with their mate. And they're also not willing to go deep with their mate. So their woman is basically starving for depth. They're starving for that masculine attention and presence. And then what women will do is they'll eventually start going out and trying to get that masculine attention by flirting and, getting attention from other men and other women and, all this kind of stuff just to fill themselves back up again. And so it creates this terrible loop of dysfunction that's very hard to get out of. But what I find is that, if a woman, can open energetically and a man can fully penetrate her, then she'll feel safe. When she feels safe, trust me, she's going to be more sexually open. She'll try new things. She'll get a little bit more interesting. And then, our goal is to make a woman so exciting in the shades of intimacy because her feminine is opening up, that why would a man go anywhere else? Because he's got a level of depth and emotional connection and sensitivity and passion that is way deeper than anything that's in porn.